All
Oh,
right, everyone. Hello and welcome to our live that me and Nick are going to do right now on intrusive thoughts and anxiety and how to navigate the intrusive thoughts when they come in. I know you were shocked by the record button at the beginning. You
this
are
is
now being recorded. It's like incriminating, right?
yeah.
So we are going to get the chat started today by me giving you a trigger warning. And the reason why I'm leading with a trigger warning is because me and Nick don't really know what we're going to say. We don't really know what's going to come out of our mouths. And like, I'm probably going to overshare some intrusive thoughts that I have and that I've had in the past that I have now. And I'm sure he's going to do the same. So if you are sensitive to that, like by all means, if it happens and you need to earmuff yourself and be like, la 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 da da, fine, but we are going to give it the real deal here because that's what I'm all about. I've told him that's what I'm all about. And I want everything to be true, real, honest, and uncensored and super authentic. Okay. So that is my trigger warning. And then the next thing that I wanted to do was give a, hi, Steve. I put Otis downstairs. Is just to give a overarching normalization of this concept that we're going to talk about, because I think a lot of us coming in think that we have this crazy mental health condition where thoughts pop up in our head and that they're really negative and they're really bad and we're struggling and suffering with them, and no one else is going through this wild ride. And I just want everyone to recognize off the hop how normal this is, how frequent it is. And like, there's so much research that even shows 95% of people would report that they have them. So that's like a massive number. And I just want everyone to kind of sit back and relax and recognize that today there is going to be a bunch of other people listening in, that if you share or if we share, that you're going to go, oh, me too. Oh my God, I can't believe you have that thought. I can't believe that exact same thing happened to you. So that is what I wanted to lead with. And then we'll just get into the good stuff. All right.
Literally the first thing on my list, the notes. The thing that I made was, should I mention a trigger warning? Because so many of
100%.
my intrusive thoughts are very sensitive subjects for people. And I'm like, well, that's where a lot of them come from.
Yeah. And I have some pretty nasty ones. So I mean, like, I won't go into like the full details, but I think it'll be nice for people to hear like, oh shit, like she's a doctor and she's going through this shit too, or she thinks that too. And I think that when we talk about the tools that I use, I think that by the end of this, my hope is that everyone kind of de-intensifies their relationship with these seemingly scary thoughts,
Yeah.
because they seem very, it's almost like specific, like the freak out, the panic, the spiral is just specific to these certain thoughts and not everything. So we're going to talk all about that. There is a lot of Steve chat happening in the corner over here.
Yeah, he commands the space a lot.
Yeah, everyone. So I have my Otis, which is my dog. He won't make an appearance, maybe at the end if I bring him up. But this is Nick's dog, and he's a character.
He's a
So
very,
you might see his face pop in a few times. We have a lot of dog lovers in my community, so it's perfectly fine.
yeah, whenever I live stream, they can donate and it gives him treats. So people will donate just so he'll sit in the camera and get
All
treats.
right,
But then
Otis, get up here. I'm
they
kidding.
trained him. They literally trained him to come to the camera now.
It's
So
like a
when
furbo.
I start talking and he's like, "Oh, we're talking to the chat." Okay.
It flings
Um,
into the screen so that he gets positive reinforcement.
oh yeah.
Okay. So let's start with the basics. Let's go with what's an intrusive thought. I'll give my rendition, then obviously you can add all the things that you want to. But I want to get down some of the details so that we're all on the same page. Because also a lot of us think that we have intrusive thoughts, but when we look at the definition, we're like, oh, that's not really what would clinically be called an intrusive thought and doesn't require treatment, let's say. Okay. So as at baseline, we have a random thought that's just coming into the focus of the mind. And usually it's going to be unsettling or frightening in nature, which we've already talked about. And I already told you guys before, we all get them. Okay. So they're going to be negative, intrusive thoughts that we're focusing on. However, we all have to remember that we also have positive intrusive thoughts. And we tend to focus only on the negative ones and not on the positive ones because we're busy reacting to the negative ones, right? So can everyone in their heads right now think of like, okay, that is a negative intrusive thought that I get. If I asked you in the chat right now, put up an intrusive thought that you get all the time. Let's see if we can like hot fire shoot right now and see how many we come through. So go in the chat, tell me one negative intrusive thought that you have at the top of your list that you're like, I always get this. We have to wait a little bit. There's a delay on the Zoom chat.
I'm like, oh,
And people are sitting and typing. Remember, we're not automated.
true. Touch the flat.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of like hot burning ones for people who are like, I didn't close a thing. Okay. Health anxiety, driving off the certain bridge. Yup, that's an archetype. World's a better place without me in it. Yuck. This is too good to be meant for me. Yuck. Self-esteem, intrusive thoughts fucking suck. Stabbing someone when I see a sharp object. Archetype. Okay. Touching hot things. Archetype. Throwing yourself off a balcony. Archetype. Does anyone have that one? You're like, I could just jump off this right now. Nyx is steering off the road. Another archetype. Harming people around you. Archetype. Okay. What else is coming through? Not good enough. Okay. Amazing. Now, all of you that just put in a negative intrusive thought, can some of you now add a positive intrusive thought? Tell me one thing that has popped into your head randomly, an intrusive thought. That was a good thing.
I don't even think I can think of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
It's like, fuck shit, you got me here.
wait, I've never thought of it in that way, that's like
I
something
know.
positive.
And now that has a label, and that's called negative lens bias.
Love
Okay. So Stacy's like drawing a blank on that one. That is a massive part of the issue when it comes to intrusive thoughts at the beginning, is we associate it only with a negative thing, and we're forgetting that there is positive connotations to this as well. And then random associations with this too. And that happens a lot in meditation. And it's going to be something that I talk about later as a skill and a tool, because with this negative lens bias, which is a cognitive distortion, we forget that those positive things are also happening as much as the negatives, but we are only paying attention to the negatives when they're happening, and we really start to spiral in that area. So that was my way, my little activity at the beginning, getting you all to step back and go, oh shit, like this isn't just a thought issue and an intrusive thought problem that I have, or a diagnosis. This is a perspective issue as well. And I hope that that reduces the thing that I said at the beginning, is I want to reduce your intensity in your relationship with these thoughts. That is the first layer, and we're going to go deep. Okay. But that was the first thing. Okay. These thoughts, positive, negative, neutral, don't care. They are stimulated by a thing, right? So if you guys think to your intrusive thoughts in your head, they're usually put on or brought on by a thing, right? You see something and then you're like, ah, there's the thought. Or you hear something and you're like, oh, there's the thought, right? Can everyone kind of like say yes, no, maybe in the chat? Do you recognize that the thoughts come on from a stimulus, or are they coming out of thin air and then you're just like squirrel? Or are you being like, I'm in the car driving, yo, I could go off the road right now, right? So we have to remember that there's an association piece, and that already off the hop makes it less crazy. Is these thoughts aren't being sprinkled out of thin air and you are a schizophrenic who's randomly thinking about scary things out of nowhere. There's a reason why the thought becomes present in the focus of the mind. Okay. Tell me more about yours. Tell me which ones yours fall under. And then we're going to talk about that later, like which umbrella they fall under. Tammy's saying mine just pop up out of nowhere. Tammy, I'd love to hear more about what yours are. And then Rhiannon is saying, LOL, I rant. Thought I was schizo. Mine are random though. So, well, Rhiannon, I also want to challenge you and say the biggest intrusive thought that you have has to do with your daughter. So it's not really random because you're always with her and thinking about her and integrating with her. So it becomes less random because we have the stimuli, right? Nick, tell me more about yours. Where do yours come from?
I feel like I wrote down a bunch that like I've either thought of or think of.
Okay.
So most are thought of because I've like tried to sit back and be like, where would I think these come from? But when I was in high school, I always like driving on the way to school, I'd be like, I could just not, and I could just take a little right off into the ditch. It's not a big ditch. I might not pass away. I might just be injured and then I don't have to go. Like I don't have to go to school. And when I think back to school, like I never had a bad experience. Like school wasn't bad. I never showed up. I skipped all the time. Like I was not there. But there wasn't like when I think back, I don't know that there was a reason, but I always definitely was like, I don't want to die. I just don't want to go.
I'm going to pause you
Yeah.
because I am going to touch on this later, which is I'm not asking you about the reason why you're thinking it. I don't want to know the thought process of how you got there. I want to know the stimuli that creates the thought. So for me, if I walk down the stairs, every
Hmm.
time I walk down the stairs, I go, I'm going to fall. Right. Like I don't know what it is, but every time I walk down the stairs, I
Yeah.
go, my feet are going to not do this and I'm going to fall. Which is funny because I did fall down the stairs 2 weeks ago and got a concussion. Okay. I wish. But in the example that I'm giving, I walked down the stairs and that's where the thought came from. In your example, it's I drove the car and that's where the thought came from. It doesn't matter what the thought process is of how we get there, because we are going to talk about how the thoughts are random in nature and they
Yeah.
don't actually have a deeper meaning, which a lot of people, especially who are anxiety inclined, have a difficult time separating themselves from. This is not a real thought. It's not a reason. There's actually no correlation whatsoever, because we're so used to in our head being like, well, it happened when I was doing that going there. So this is how I'm going to connect the dots,
Hmm.
instead of I drove and the intrusive thought came. And then for me, I'm walking down the stairs, the intrusive thought comes in. Or for those of you that said stabbing people with knives, you see the knife before you have the thought, right? One of my patients just goes, you have PTSD, Jenna, because I've been telling my patients about my intrusive thought with falling down the stairs for years. And then all of a sudden 2 weeks ago. And for example, someone with anxiety would be like, that was a premonition. I knew the whole time that I was going to fall down the stairs in that
Yeah.
exact moment and it was going to cause a concussion. And that's why. It's like, no, there is no rationale, no connection, no logic whatsoever. The intrusive thought is simply related to the actions that we're doing.
Hmm.
I asked in the chat before and I probably have to go read through, but do people have random thoughts that have no connection to anything, but are just violent images that come up in their mind?
Hmm.
Holly's saying it's always happening when she's driving without her son in the car. So the driving gives you the intrusive thought about the thing. Someone is saying, driving, what if I cross over into someone? Are they going in my lane? I crash and they die? Yes. What ifs? Maya's saying some of hers come out of nowhere, some come from an event. Okay. And then Stacy's saying I get scared, I'm going to go crazy and off myself. That is also a very archetypical one, is I am going to lose my mind. I'm going to end up in the loony bin.
When I don't know anything, it just is a thought I always have is, those like nice displays in stores, like with the beautiful things. Since I was a kid and to this day, like I walk by, I'm like, I could just go,
Yeah.
no matter, since I can remember being like like so little, under 10 years old to last week, I'm like, I could knock that over and it would be
Yeah.
so satisfying.
But you never have, right?
No. Well,
Yeah.
on accident, actually, once. I ran into a coconut oil display and Bulk Barn, and the whole thing shattered. They were glass
Yeah.
jars.
So you
It was-
fell down the stairs once, like me, essentially, but it
Yeah.
had nothing to do with the intrusive thought. And I think that it's a big thing to hammer home, is that we can have all these thoughts. A lot of the time they pop into, wow, that is a massive water bottle. They,
Hydrate.
they pop into our existence. And I think that the anxiety and the fear and the worry and all that, it comes from the shame of feeling them, right? Like when you were telling me that story, all I could think of was, as a kid, you're probably like, wow, I'm a bad child. Like I'm a mischievous, incorrect, like I'm trying to scheme and I'm trying to cause an issue and a problem. And like, I'm evil for thinking that and doing it, even though you're just walking by being like, that would be good if I did that. And then you walk away and you're like, no, because we all have self-control and willpower at the end of the day. And a lot of us forget about that when we have these thoughts, because we're like, well, if I thought it, then maybe I could do it. And I always say to my patients, there's a massive stretch between thinking something and doing something, like massive.
Oh
And
yeah,
this
like
is,
the amount of negative thoughts I have all day, but like I choose to be like, okay, well, I'm not doing that, or that thought was not, we don't like that. Let's redirect that. Like I'm
yeah,
not a bad person for thinking the bad thing, is
yeah.
what I'm to tell myself all the
But a
time.
lot of people can't get out of that. And that's like that shame cycle is, I would say it's the biggest reason why people seek out help because they're like, this is not right. This is
Mhm,
not acceptable. It's not socially acceptable. Like maybe I'm a sociopath. Maybe I'm a psychopath. Like, why do I want to do these bad, scary things? And that mixed with not trusting yourself is a recipe for chaotic disaster.
mhm,
And that's often what I work on with my patients is the protective factors. How do we get from thinking it to not actually doing it? And what do we have in place to never get to the part where we do it? Because even though it sounds ridiculous when we say our intrusive thoughts, like, what if
mhm,
I just went off the road? It's like,
mhm,
you don't actually think you're going to do it. Right. Like
mhm,
there's a massive distance. Um, and it's a slippery slope, right? Because then it's like, why do we have the intrusive thought? Is the overwhelm behind it? Is there intent behind it? Is it really an intrusive thought then? Like I think that's the muddy water. And that's why I try and keep it very clinical when I work with them instead of like trying to help people make sense of them
mhm.
because you can't ever make sense of something. This is like the topic of the thing you can never put your finger on.
Yeah.
It's like when you have a dream and you wake up and you're trying to catch it and you're like, and then you just forget it. There's actually no point in having conversations about what the thoughts mean, which is very opposite to a lot of psychotherapy techniques, which is let's unpack and dive in and go through the layers and look at all of this. And, you know, it gets chaotic because
Mhm,
at the end of the day, a thought is just a thought, and we have to be willing to see it as a thought without it holding so much weight. Okay.
mhm.
We're getting into saying the muddy water messes with me. Me too, but I also love muddy water. I love having these curious conversations about the brain and how it functions because there's logic,
Mhm.
there is feelings, which are fucked, and then there is us trying to, I want to use the word mysticism or like spiritual connection of trying to blend them together. And this is one of those mental health things where I'm like,
Yeah.
don't do it. Like, don't look for deeper meaning here because there is no deeper meaning. And I'm trying to latch onto more of the complicated intrusive thoughts that cause fear and terror and like pain and like that kind of stuff, not bad things you think about yourself. Because
Right.
self-esteem and bad things that you think about yourself is not the same as intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
And I hope that I highlighted that when I read in the chat. I cherry picked which ones that are real intrusive thoughts. And I don't want you guys to label yourself as someone who has intrusive thoughts if they're not. Because a lot of us label and we over label and over diagnose as intrusive thoughts when they're just thoughts and
Mhm.
we're
I
just
would think
humans.
about that. I think about like I don't think the person who thinks those things is like me. And if I can word that better, like it's a separate person in my brain who comes in and is like, "Hey," like it's and then I look at it and I go, "No, no, 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 no."
Yeah.
Like I don't look at that as like I thought that.
Like the
Wow.
devil angel situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're they're beefing at all times.
Yeah. See, I love that. I love like the voice inside your head. I always tell my patients, like, let's name it. Let's have an actual character name. Like I
Mhm.
have a friend and we've named her character name Bertha because it's like such a savage. So we're like,
Yeah.
you Bertha. And you can try and compartmentalize. I want to say that has an IFS component to it. That's family systems component where we like kind of label things and place them in different spots. Amelia's going, let's name her Rebecca. Okay, great. I love the name Rebecca, but there's probably a Rebecca here right now, and she's gonna be upset about that. Anyway, I think that that's a great way to do it. However, I have seen in my practice, there has to be a sensitivity to people who get afraid of that concept that there's another voice in their head, or there's another person, or there's an entity, or there is like different versions of them, because a lot of people with intrusive thoughts, muddy water, hello, they get confused at which one is them. And I think that that's a challenging piece here is there are some people that are safe in themselves to like make claims like that. And obviously, yes, that's the right way to look at it if we're going right, wrong. But we have to have this sensitivity to people who can't do that because they
Mhm.
don't feel safe in their person. And like I face up against it a lot with patients because we're working with things that are not just intrusive thoughts. We've got OCD. We have PTSD. We have different things that can be the lead cause of why the intrusive thoughts are coming in, and they have to be dealt with so sensitively.
Hmm.
I'm seeing some like James wrote something funny before. A monster wants to get me when I'm swimming in lakes. Dude, I cannot swim in a lake. I can't. I know that there's nothing under there, but I turn into this like thing, like from the Black Lagoon, and I'm like trying to be flat on the surface of the water, and I just can't do it either. So
I
James,
feel
I feel
that
you.
in a pool. Like
No,
there will never not be a there will never be a shark in my pool. Like there
no.
won't. But literally, still to this day, like I still have that panic go to like the stairs.
Oh
I don't know
no.
why. It's just always been like that. Like even like shutting off the light and running to my bedroom.
I have that
Oh,
one really bad, like really
yeah,
bad.
nothing's gonna get me.
I
But
know.
it's like the day that I walk, it does. I run literally 4 steps
Oh,
every.
dude, I can't do anything like that in the dark. The second, not only running, like I will have my flashlight on and I'm like turning it around as I'm walking, being
Oh,
like, there was no one when the lights were on, but now that it's dark, everything is unknown.
yes, yes.
That's amazing. Yeah, so many intrusive thoughts are just gonna pop in while I'm doing this, being like, oopsies, I didn't know all that was going on in there. Can we take a moment to talk about the science for a second, just so that everyone is walking away with some learning here? Can you give me a thumbs up? Yes. You're good for me to just give you some information. I know Nick doesn't like learning, but do you?
I like learning. I don't like learning when I ask. That's my
Oh,
issue. It's like,
well, I'm going to tell you.
yeah, like when like you ask for something but you don't really want to know. That's
Yes,
like my
that's
not.
literally when I say something about finances and then like someone starts talking, I'm like, "Blah, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
doo." My brain does that. So hopefully everyone's brains turn on right now because this is important. Okay. Elena's saying my therapist is going to love that I did this. Yes, she will. You're going to come in with all the science next week. You're going to be like, yo, what about my amygdala? What about my prefrontal cortex? Why aren't you treating my nervous system, therapist? It's going to be amazing. She's going to love that you went, but she's also going to hate me.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. We'll be like,
Okay. So my patients, my community, everyone who's in real life with anxiety and depression, you have all heard me talk about the amygdala, that area in our brain that is in control of our fear response. Yes? For the lay people here who don't know what that is, this is your fight or flight response center. Do we know what that is?
"Mm,
Our cortisol, our alarm bells. Yes? We're all good. We're all on board. Okay. When we have an overactive amygdala, which is basically everyone who has anxiety, anyone who has depression, anyone who's had CPTSD, which is a complex childhood situation, okay? Anyone who has had to have their hypervigilant brain turned on because they have had experienced a threat. This is the part of the brain that is active, and that is the part of the brain that is allowing for these intrusive thoughts to come through. Because if we think about it in its nature, intrusive thoughts are negative, right? And the point of the amygdala is to have negative lens bias so it keeps us safe. And I think that the brain, nowadays, especially because a lot of us have this chronic anxiety for no reason, that part of the brain is consistently signaling, you need to think about this. This has to be at the forefront of your mind. You have to take this into consideration because it's constantly being fired. So for those of you that have that high level of anxiety and that have the intrusive thoughts that are consistently coming through, we have to be working on that area of your brain. So we have to be working on, more jargon coming through, your parasympathetic nervous system. We have to calm that area in your brain down and shrink its size. Because right now, it literally has its horns out and it's hoofing and it's coming for you. And it's saying, you need to listen to this thought. I don't give a fuck what you think you're doing. This is the most important thing in the room right now. Okay. You can't fight against that part of your brain by talking to it. And here's the beautiful science behind that, which is not beautiful. It's actually terrifying. Okay. That part of your brain that has the fear response is screaming at the part of your brain that thinks. But the part of your brain that thinks, your prefrontal cortex, that's what makes us human. We've all heard that word. Yes. That has basically 0 to no connections back to the amygdala. So when you're telling yourself, calm down, you don't need to think this. This doesn't matter. You're not going to do that. Every time you try and think positively or talk back to it, it's literally like Nick. plugging its ears, going, blah, 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 not gonna listen and learn, because it doesn't work that way. And it's unfortunate in one sense. I can hear my husband hacking a lung downstairs. He's sick. It's unfortunate in the sense that the thinking brain can't talk back to the animal brain, but it's amazing in the sense that our animal brains will always keep us safe, right? So we can't have one without the other. And everyone's always like, meh, why does it have to be like this? Why couldn't it just be different? You wouldn't be alive if it was different. Okay, that's the basic answer at the end of the day. However, it's our job as human beings to say, okay, we have the science, we know how it works, so we have to work to tone the amygdala down and turn that nervous system response down. And we have to do that in a way where our body and our brain still feels safe, which is also very confusing and muddy water, which is why I always tell people regulate your nervous system. And it's not something that we're even going to be able to tackle that much of today, but I'm still going to try. Okay. That was the first piece. Second piece, we have our prefrontal cortex sitting at the front of our brain. I told you that's what makes us human. Okay. The point of this part of the brain, because we're human, is to filter out the bullshit. Right? You guys all know how to multitask. You all know how to get stuff done. You all know how to live, right? Because we're humans. We're not squirrels. We don't go, oh, berry nuts run into car die, right? We have more going on for us. We're like, make a family, have a dog, make some curry. Like we have other shit going on, right? And the job of the prefrontal cortex is to sift through all the information so that everything is going smoothly. But when you're stressed all the time, it can't do that. You know, when you guys like make a mistake and like leave your cell phone in the fridge?
Yes.
Okay. That's like because your prefrontal cortex, it can't handle it. So what happens when we're in that state of high anxiety, high stress is those intrusive thoughts just go phoom, and they come right through. So for those of you that are saying they're random or they're coming out of nowhere, it's really likely that your life is so overly stressful and your prefrontal cortex is constantly running its anxiety response, and the thoughts are able to filter through so much easier. Think about like a mom who has 5 kids. Okay. Hopefully everyone here is like, oh God, I do not. Thank God. Okay. So if you're a mom who has 5 kids, it's really likely that if you're like safeguarding the cookie jar, that like 2 kids are going to be able to run over the other way and go into the cupboard and get cookies, right? But the other 3 you got your eyes on, you're like, you can't have the cookie jar. But the other ones are going to get filtered through and they're going to go. And I hope this analogy is landing. I don't know where it came from. It was an intrusive thought. However, it makes sense, right? We can't have our eyes on everything all the time. Like, remember when you were a kid playing octopus at gym? And like, it was a lot easier for you to run to the other side and the octopus wouldn't get you if all the kids are running at the same time. This is what's happening at the front of your brain. I love my brain right now. That made so much sense.
That
Do we
made so
know
much.
octopus?
Yeah,
Do we know the game octopus, guys? I love that. Okay. I feel like that's enough science for now. I do have other areas of the brain to talk about, but I don't want to like miss the good stuff. So is this all making sense?
Mhm.
Can I get some yeses, some thumbs up flying all over the screen? There we go. I see my thumbs.
Oh my God, they really fly on the screen.
Yeah, they do. I love when people like send me hearts and like crying of laughter faces. It makes me giggle.
I love that.
Okay.
I didn't notice that.
I needed that water right now. Okay. So we already talked about, yeah, anxiety is high. We're going to see more intrusive thoughts. I told you guys regulating the nervous system, especially focusing on that fear response, the fight or flight in the amygdala is super, super important. If you don't know what nervous system regulation work is, because you're not in my community, please join the Facebook group. Please follow me on Instagram. Please start learning how you're going to do this, because I'm pretty sure that anyone who's here who's from my community is like, yes, Dr. J, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know I'm not doing it. I know this should be doing it. So like, you know, we need to get educated first. All right. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about in this section was the protective factors play a massive role for intrusive thoughts. And I want to use you as an example, because you have had a bunch of intrusive thoughts. But I want you, if I said to you, what are your protective factors to not act on your intrusive thoughts? What would you say that they are?
Like the reason to not do things?
Sure.
My parents. Like
Okay.
I would never want to disappoint them.
Okay.
There's like, that's like a pretty much I would say that, like my husband and my dog, like I just couldn't do anything that would impact their lives.
Okay. And now what would be the protective factors in your life that would stop you from doing that aren't other people?
Well, now because I like being alive.
Yeah.
I like the thought of being alive.
Yeah.
I like the idea of what my future could be.
Yep.
And then also I don't love being in pain. So like the thought of like what if I lived or things like that, or there's things that I would like to do, like I don't drink anymore, but if I had a drink, I would be like, I have to finish the whole bottle, even if I'm alone. But why I don't do that, because I know so many bad things about drinking now, but also is I don't want to feel that way. So like those are the things that stop me. Is I don't want to feel like shit. I know what that's gonna feel like. I know that's not gonna breed a positive.
Yeah.
But before
So
it was not about me.
yeah. So you can see how big of a role those protective factors have been along the way.
Oh,
And I talk about a lot like hierarchy of needs and like when we should start working on mental health, when we're privileged enough to start working on specific symptoms and how to look at things differently and all that kind of stuff. But protective factors play a massive role in talking ourselves down initially so that we can gain perspective. Right? Like when you were a kid and you're like, I could just drive off the road, but you're like, oh, I would not do that to my parents. Like
mhm,
we have to have protective factors always, not just with intrusive thoughts, also with anxiety, also with stress. Like it always plays a role. And I think that a lot of us sometimes are so focused on the thought instead of saying, but that could and would never happen because of this. And if you're someone who doesn't have protective factors in play, instead of saying, how am I going to stop having intrusive thoughts? As a doctor, I'm telling you, stop fucking looking over there and turn your eyes to the other side and say, what protective factors can I build into my life so that it doesn't matter how bad it gets. It doesn't matter what I want to do. It doesn't matter how crazy I am. I would never because of this. Right. And I think that it needs to be lifted up a little bit more and shoved down people's throats that we need to have more of the protective component instead of obsessing all the time about how crazy we are and how bad it is. And like it's the same thing at the beginning when I said to you, negative intrusive thoughts, but give me a positive intrusive thought. No one's looking over there, right? And it's important. And it does play a role in how we navigate the intrusive thought when it pops up. Some of us have an intrusive thought and then we go, holy shit, I don't have any protective factors there to protect me from it, which gets really scary. So I think that it's something for you all to consider if it's not something that you've ever considered. And protective factors don't just have to be people that you love. It can be, I like my life. I like my dog. I like my house. I like trees. It can literally be anything. It could be Nick being like, my plants. I
mhm,
need to pay attention to my plants. Protective factors bring you back to reality, because the intrusive thought in its nature is really dramatic. And you can bring yourself back and be like, oh, okay, that was a lot. And that's not actually in the realms of reality for what I want. What I want to do is go home and water my snake plant.
mhm,
But what I'm thinking right now is drive off the road. And they're so disparate that you have a moment where you're like, oh my God, how can I be thinking both of these at the same time?
mhm,
And that's again, I'm muddy water, but you can't be thinking both of those at the same time. You can think the intrusive thought for a quick moment, but you were always going back home to water your plant. And that's something important to recognize is the weight. We have to do that proper scale, and we can't let the negative lens bias weigh the scale down incorrectly. We have to step back and perceive. Okay. Um, that this is going to be a personal question because I actually don't know if you've ever dealt with OCD stuff. So there's a difference in intrusive thoughts between OCD and anxiety. If you guys know and you're listening to the live, and you know that you have OCD intrusive thoughts or just anxiety intrusive thoughts, roll it on in. Nick, you?
I don't know the difference.
Okay.
I've never spoken to someone about that.
I love OCD. And I did a live on OCD. I've just seen a lot of improvement in my patients with OCD. So I became like really curious about it. Because I think, you know how I've been talking about like resistance and resisting the thought a little bit? That is like the mainstay of OCD. So the anxiety intrusive thoughts are, I have an intrusive thought and now I'm going to be super anxious about it because blah, blah, blah that we've talked about. And OCD is I've had an intrusive thought that is a little bit more random in nature that shouldn't, I don't love using that word, but shouldn't really have popped up. And now I have to ritualistically do something. Otherwise, blank is going to happen. So like, let's go super archetype at the beginning. If it's like, oh my God, my dog's going to get hit by a car today, whatever the intrusive thought is. And then you say, if I don't flick the light switch on and off 3 times, and I don't do that 7 times in a row, then that'll be the reason that my dog dies. And there's almost a cycle that gets reinforced where we can't not do the compulsion after the intrusive thought has been present. Okay. Holly just wrote, I fully believe Nick has some sort of OCD.
My community's been with me for a lot of years, and they've seen me for 5 to 8 hours a day, every day. They know a lot about me. I do have like 2 things like that. So I have one where I have to make a plus sign with my thumb, like on my phone or like on something.
Yep.
If I don't, like I have this weird feeling like I'm gonna lose feeling.
Yes. Okay.
Like if I don't do that plus sign, now that I'm thinking about it, it's not gonna stop doing it. Um,
Okay.
like
So
I have like days on my leg.
okay. So you have your active compulsion. Do you have a backup compulsion?
The hell's a backup
So if
compulsion?
I tell you right now, you can't fucking do that plus sign.
I like feel like I have to go like this.
Okay. So that's your backup compulsion is moving your hands and your feet. Because if you don't do it, you will lose feeling in your arms and legs. Because you are in control of some odd destiny that has to do with the intrusive thought.
Oh, 100%.
Okay. Okay. I never want to over pathologize.
Bro, what?
Over pathologize. I
I
don't
don't
want to say like, yes, this is OCD. You need
Right.
it treated. Because what it comes down to at the end of the day is your perception of it, right?
Mhm.
How much time do you spend doing the compulsion? How much quality of life does it take away from you? How distressing is it, right? Like there are people that have a compulsion where if they don't do it, they actually have to excuse themselves to do it. Otherwise, they have emotional outbursts. So I could have
You
simulated
have one
that.
of those. I have one of those as well.
Hit
And
me.
my whole chat knows it. It's 4:44 the time. Been seeing it since I was in the 6th grade. And if I don't well, I used to attach it to like whenever I would see it, something horrible was going to happen. I just
Yep.
knew. And then at one point I was like, I'm not living my life like this anymore. So every time I see it, I'm gonna be like, thank you for bringing me back to an awareness. And then I like say something I'm grateful for. And if I don't, then I'm like, something bad will happen. And so I will literally excuse the chat and I'll be like, hold on. And
So
like
you've
anybody else around.
positively manipulated yourself into an OCD tendency, but your perception is that's my mindful moment. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would say that that's obviously really mild. Like I have patients that are like, this takes 3 to 4 hours of my day, every day in my life. Yeah. So that would be distressing OCD.
I see it though, like at least 20 times a day. Like everywhere. Like I see, it's like I'm looking for it. It's so crazy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we will talk about that too.
Yeah. I see it like on times, on things, phone numbers, signs, like all day. I see 444.
Okay. I would say that this probably is more of a mix between that mysticism and spiritual connection, plus very mild. Like you don't sound like distressed by this thing that you do. Like I have people who have rituals that get in the way of their lives. If it doesn't, that's the diagnostic criteria in my mind. If you want to work on it.
It used to, because it's attached to a horrible thing. And it's just like never, I was just like, I won't live like that, attaching it to that anymore, even though I still probably do. Just in a different. Hmm?
I said, we'll unpack that later.
Yeah.
But that is the difference between the two is the intrusive thoughts with anxiety are more of like, I'm scared of this thought. And the OCD has the ritualistic component of, if I don't do this thing, then this will happen. And it usually lasts for a longer cycle. However, these days I do see like the anxiety and then the spiral and everything that happens after from just a thought is enough to get people to be like, hey, fuck this. I need help. With what's going on. And nothing is worse or better, or one's more treatable than the other. They're just different subsets. And I think that if you were to say, okay, I want help for my intrusive thoughts, even though that's not where you're at, but if you did want to do that, maybe you are, that's where you're at. I don't know. But you would have to make sure that you are working under the right umbrella diagnosis. Because like when I treat my patients with anxiety and I'm using natural medicines, that's a different treatment protocol completely than when
Mhm.
we're doing just anxiety and like, let's say amygdala regulation and prefrontal cortex regulation. There is just different stuff. So I want all of you to know that there are different umbrella categories for these different types of intrusive thoughts. And you do want to know which one you fall under so that you're making sure the things that you're doing are helping with the symptom intensity and that you're not, for example, with Nick, if he doesn't get to do his plus sign and can't move his hands, we don't want him sitting there shitting his pants for the rest of the life, being like, I didn't do it, right? People with anxiety can sit there without that thought. Is that my thing heating up? Like my fan on my computer?
I
Or
don't hear.
did you hear that? Did anyone else hear that? I'm having an intrusive sound. But yeah, I think that we have to make sure we're treating it correctly so the symptoms are going away instead of beating ourselves up and being like, well, I'm doing this and it's not going away. What if you're trying to treat your anxiety related intrusive thoughts without tackling the OCD component and then we're working in the wrong territory? So it is important to know. Okay. I'm just trying to make sure I'm not missing anything in the chat. Can you watch that for a sec? Oh, okay. James is saying, is that James? Yeah. I need to straighten objects like pictures or repeatedly move my fingers in a pattern over and over. I think I may be on the spectrum. Yes, sir, you probably are. Checking my messages are a compulsion for me. It stems from having a friend die, related missed messages, and I wake up. Okay. So I would say that's more classical conditioning versus an OCD tic. Okay. You are not in charge of your OCD tics. Okay. Nick didn't wake up one morning and was like, I like plus signs. His finger just did it. And he was like, I don't fucking know what that was. And then it did it again. And he was like, I needed to do it. And then it just reinforces. So we have to, again, when it comes to treating, we have to make sure we're under the right umbrellas. Because a lot of us out in this world are getting a lot of mental health advice and not actually understanding the categories that we sit under. And that's why I love having these lives and hearing people chat. So I can be like, yes, but no, and no, but yes, and scoochy over here and looky over there. I think it's helpful. Okay. You shared a little bit of your intrusive thoughts. Do you have any other ones that you want to share? Did you write anything on that list that you're like, this is a good one?
Where are we? I put oh, well, every time so we have this road here, and I don't know why it's 90 kilometers per hour. And it's just like one way this way, one way this way, like one road lane touching each other. Like if you just for a second went over, you're dead. And every time I'm on it, I'm like, I could just go over. It'd be done. Like it'd be just done. Because you're not living. There's so many people here who have passed away on that road for that reason.
Yeah,
And that would be it.
that's
Like,
terrifying.
yeah. There's that one. There's
Do you have any random ones? Like really random ones? I have a really random one that I still get it sometimes. I'm like, what?
like what?
My old dog, so bad because we both have dogs, and it's like, my old dog was tiny,
Mhm.
and I used to have this. And I'm sorry, this is a trigger warning. So if you need your earmuffs, put it on now. I used to have this intrusive thought that I was just gonna grab her jaw at the top and the bottom and just rip it apart and her whole. And honestly, when I tell you, unsettled, I used to not be able to look at her. I'd be like, oh fucking ew. I couldn't get it out of my head. So every time I would see her face in a specific position, it would come in, and sometimes it would happen randomly, and it used to give me the fucking ick. Another that was so completely random. Stacey just goes, I think about squeezing my dog's head till their eyes pop out. I never would. Stephen runs away very fast.
My head is too big. You can't do that.
My dog would literally come up to me and be like, yes, squish my face, master. He just wants me to.
Yeah.
Another unsettling one that I used to get from a PTSD related incident was I watched someone's hand get crushed in the back of a truck. They put their hand between the pickup truck and a brick wall, and I watched their hand I was the first responder, so I watched their hand disintegrate, and then and sometimes I'll be doing nothing and I'll be like, and I can feel it everywhere in my body. Okay. So the thing that I want to say about these types of thoughts that are like really random and really unsettling is you actually have to observe them, not respond to them, and then move out your nervous system in the way that I just did. Okay. Like shaking it out, gagging, making sounds, like letting it move out of you is the most important thing for your body and your mind, your nervous system, connecting the two. You have to do it. Okay. I just had the visceral response all over again. Does that mean that I'm never going to drive a pickup truck and that I'm never going to look at a hand again, or that I'm never going to have a dog? No, we can't let those thoughts get in the way. It doesn't mean that the unsettling things aren't there. And yes, they are going to come back into the forefront of our mind at the most random times in your life. You cannot control that, but what you can control is the imprinting it has on your body. And for those of you that have the thoughts that come up and you get scared of them and you hold that in, or you feel shame, or you create a story to them instead of just literally like a boomerang, let them come in and then be like, "Huh," and throw them out of you and let them move. Every single time you don't do that and you take it in and you take it in and you ruminate and you think, you are actively imprinting it on your nervous system. And it can't say that in more ways. And I could repeat it 5 billion times. Are there any of you that get the intrusive thoughts and immediately do something about it with your body? Or are you sitting in your head and thinking about it, being like, wow, that's so fucked up. Can't believe I thought that. And like trying to rationalize it and be like, where did that thought come from? How did it happen? Like, does anyone do what I just said? Is consistently boomerang it the fuck out of you?
I never do. I just think I gonna go no. Like in my head, I just go no, or I'll be like no, because I talk to myself all day.
Mhm.
I have one about like puking because I this has never happened to me, and I don't know anyone it's happened to. But when I get to the end of a smoothie, it doesn't matter how big it is, I start to gag. Like I can't finish it if it's this big or it's this big, and so I can't finish it because I'm like I'm gonna throw up, and I get hot, and like I'm gonna like that's it. And I've never finished one because I don't think I can.
That's like
I'm gonna
so
puke.
interesting.
And I have no idea why, but like it's always been like that. Like I just can't get past like the last few
Is
sips.
it only a smoothie?
Yes, it's only a smoothie. Like that's it.
It's so
Someone,
interesting.
I posted one on my story and someone was like, "What if you drink it in a cup that you can't see? Like the amount in it." And I was like, "I never thought of that. Didn't
What do you
try it."
mean? If you're a booster juice and like there's, you can feel when there's a little bit left.
We don't like have those here in this little town.
No.
No, we like don't. So I like any smoothie. Like I don't know. Like because I have a protein shake every day and I can't finish it.
I wouldn't be able to finish that either. But I also have the weird compulsion that I have to finish everything that I start.
Oh, me too, but not that. Not
I draw the line at smoothies.
yeah, like
Um,
I'm like gonna throw up. It's so weird.
that is interesting, but that's also classical conditioning. Is one time you ate a smoothie and you had that thing and you imprinted it in your body. And that I'm so big on this with my patients of like what fires together, wires together, and how we have to take that framework, shake it up, and toss it out. And that's why I like that boomerang action specifically for this. I'm seeing a few people come in being like, yeah, I think it, and it just sits in my head. You're just saying no. But
Mm.
I'm telling you, there is a difference. And obviously, you guys have all heard about there's, therapy, talk therapy, and then there's somatics. That's the body, right? We have to bring them together so that we are seeing those changes in the nervous system. That's where the thoughts are coming from, guys, right? If you just go, no, right? Sure, yeah, great. You have good boundaries. No, moving on. But also, when you later on, 6 hours later, 2 days later, whatever's happening, and you go, I don't know what's happening with me lately. I'm just like not feeling right. And there's all this anxiety, and I don't know, and I can't put my finger on it. We are always turning a blind eye to the concept that our body is taking on all the things that our mind is saying no to. And we have to treat our bodies and our minds as if they're equals. But the mind has the intelligence and the body only has nature. It only has like its human nature to do, the animal nature to do what it's doing. So that's why I always say we can't mind over matter it. Can't just say no. We actually have to actively be like, no, like we have to push it out. You have to tell it no with your body, not just your head. So that's something interesting that you guys can do. A big way of me getting things out of my body is shaking. I always talk about my master class when we're scared. I mean, think about Steven, okay? When Steven's scared, not that he's ever scared, but like, let's say you start yelling at him and you're like, "Rah!" I feel like he'd be upset if you did that to him because you're always like, Steven, beep, beep.
Yeah, no, he's scared of like people like a lot.
Okay. Does he shake?
Um, no, he just turns into a baby seal. Like his ears go back and he just like gets really small.
Okay, so he freezes.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you ever see him flap his ears around after he's done that? Like shake it out?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Okay.
So like after he's had like a
An
anything
episode.
spooky or anything,
Okay.
he'll just like
So that's
yeah.
shaking it out. That's the animal response. Their cortisol, they go like, "Ugh," and then their cortisol makes their body shake it out because it has to. So if you are someone who gets scared of the thoughts that you see in your head or you're troubled, like they're disgruntling to you, shake it out. Literally shake it out. I don't care where you are. Okay. You can even give a shimmy. Even if you're in public and you're just like, no one's going to look at you and be like, what the fuck was that? Like, just do it. Trust me. Stop thinking that this can do everything because it can't. Okay.
Mhm.
That part of your brain, the amygdala we talked about at the beginning, it's not just because it's in your head. It's not a part of your human response. That's like what we share with Steven. That's what we share with elephants. It's what we share with turtles. Like we share that primitive part of our brain with them. And we have to then behave as animals if we don't want our bodies to take on the anxiety and the stress response long term, which is just going to cause more intrusive thoughts. Okay. So when they're coming in, get them out. Okay. And I don't mean get them out by saying you're not allowed to have this, because let me tell you, that is the wrong thing. And if I can give you another good child analogy, because I love a kid analogy, because we were all once kids. Okay. When your parents said to you, you can't come in this room,
Oh.
what did you do? You're like, I'm going to find the fucking key. I'm going to squeeze myself under the door. I'm going to jiggy jiggy jam with a pin. I'm going to do anything to get in there. And then when I get in there, I'm going to Sherlock Holmes the shit into this room. You don't even know what they're hiding. They just said, don't go in there. So now you're like, I want in there. Okay. The intrusive thoughts are doing the same thing. So when they come knocking and they're like, oh, do you like what you see? And you're like, no. Okay. But you're also in your head, you're like, no, I don't want you. But you're like, I'm not supposed to have this. I'm not supposed to think about it. That's the same as your parents saying, don't go in the room. They're going to keep trying to get in the room. Okay. So if you actively just go, okay, even changing the language for you, instead of saying no, just being like, okay, okay, come on, okay, you're here, okay. And this, I always say to my patients, be with. Don't be against. Don't resist. Just be with. Imran's like, my kids are doing it right now. They're trying to fucking come in this room right now. And it's important to recognize that resistance is what creates the allure for the intrusive thoughts to hold the weight that they have. Because if you're telling them, no, you can't come in, I'm not supposed to think about you, this is bad, I don't want to do this, they're going to fight harder. And you could just be like, come on in, guys. Everyone join. It's a party now. And then they get here and they're like, wait, this isn't that fun anymore. We're leaving. Right. It's like when the kids break in the room and they're like, it's dad's laptop and his printer. Like, okay. And then they're like, we're out of here. So I think that that is an important language shift. And also it's an energetic thing too. You're allowed in here. We don't discriminate against you in here. Come on in. And then they'll pass a little bit faster without the weight. Because the weight and the spiraling is like the meaning that we're putting on the thought, not the actual thought. I don't actually want to open my dog's jaw. I open it in, I'm like, ew, fucking ew. And then it's like, okay, that was weird. That came in. And bringing that, the comedy and the neutralization and the okayness, it really makes a big difference on a nervous system level, not an intellectual level. Obviously, you're going to be like, fuck, I don't want this. Like, it's always going to be there. But if your attitude and your energy is different, it's like a kid. They can feel that. Okay. I just want to make sure I'm reading what's happening in the chat.
Yeah, not feeling shame about them changed my whole life. And just,
Yeah.
but like sharing, I never understood that until I just started sharing my life online. And everybody was like, me too. What? And then I was like, oh, now it's not, I don't feel as much pressure like in that. And then you do like welcome them because you just know they're on their way. It's like expecting guests all the time.
You're like, I didn't want an open house, but I guess we're here now. And that's what this is.
Yeah, apparently my doors are just never locked.
I'm just reading. Okay, Amelia goes, because I said so versus why. Can you elaborate on that? That sounds interesting to me. Tell me more. Okay. Amelia, come back. Come back and tell me what you mean by that. I know it'll take you some time to type. So that is how I would say on a somatic level we deal with it. And now this is an interesting exercise that I do with my patients because I feel like if you're going to be here and listen, why not benefit from some free Dr. J therapy? Okay. So when the thought comes in and it freaks you out, the first thing you do, we observe it, right? We already talked about that. We go, okay, you're here. Welcome. I see you. I hear you, right? Ooh, I just had such another good analogy. You know, when you're fighting with someone and like they don't understand you, so you like start yelling louder,
Yeah.
or like you just like try and start saying it a different way, and you're like, okay, this person just like doesn't fucking get me. Imagine every argument that you had, someone actually just listened to you and understood.
Yeah.
Okay. So instead of fighting with the thoughts, just be like, huh, okay, I can hear you out. I can understand you because you're here. Okay. You're an intrusive thought. That's all you really are. You're a thought and you're here. And it's my job to observe you. And it's my job to be with you. Because if I try and push you away, you're going to fight harder. And if any of you have a spouse, you fucking know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. So don't even play. Okay. So we're not pushing away that thought with force because we know that's not what we want to do. And I already gave you that nice little analogy of the kids coming in the room. And my biggest piece of, I want to say, strong advice, even with intrusive thoughts, but with anything mental health related, is you have to stay curious and you have to stay neutral. Okay. I know that it's hard when you're having this unsettling thought, but curiosity and neutrality are two of the strongest skills you will ever build. And we will talk about what I use for myself too, with my patients and myself, to strengthen that. But that's what we need in this type of situation. Okay. So when you are in the curious place and when you are in that neutral space, you ask yourself, what is my evidence for this thought? Okay. If I can real life right now create a list of like pros and cons, what is going to tell me that I'm going to do this thing? Let's say drive the car off the bridge because it's relatable. Okay. What are the thoughts that are going to tell me, like, what evidence in real life do I have that I am going to drive this car off of the bridge or off of the street? And then we look at the other side and say, what are the pieces of evidence I have that I am not going to do that thing? Okay. Whatever you guys have as your intrusive thought, like pick like the top 5, write this down, make a list. What are the thoughts? What are the reasons that I am going to do this thing? I'm 100% going to do it because of this, 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 this. And then I'm 100% not going to do it because of this, 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 this. And I want you to look at the list. Okay. I know we talked about protective factors before. That's all going to be on your I'm not going to do it because list. And then on the other list is all the reasons why you might. And if you are going to do that thing where you're like, why am I thinking this thing? If you are the anxious inclined and you really want to connect to this thought and figure out the deeper meaning, you're going to find your answer there. Why do I want to drive off of this? I'm overwhelmed. I'm fucking mad about my relationship. I don't know how to handle my emotions. I hate my dog. Whatever it is that's on your list, you're going to find out what your answer is based on that. Okay. You don't have to look that much further. You're overwhelmed. That's why you're believing that you're going to do the intrusive thought. You can even, if you want to shortcut all of this, because you're like, fuck these thoughts, I don't want to think about them much longer. You can say, oh shit, obviously this thought's overwhelming me. That's it. Step back. Right? For those of you looking for the answer, that's it. When we have these thoughts, we get overwhelmed, which is why we start to spiral. There's nothing further. Okay. So we have pros, we have our cons, we have our answers, we have our protective factors. You have a lot of information right there to do with it. That's your rationale. There's nothing more. Once you've done that activity, you step back. There is no what if. You know, when like you're done with the rationale and then you look over at the person you're talking to, you're like, but what if I did? And they're like, oh my God, what the fuck? We're doing this again?
Yeah.
Do you do that?
Yeah. 100%. I'm like the person when you were like, oh, why? Like you just say it louder. Like I say that to my husband all the time. I'm like, just because you said it louder doesn't mean I get it. I don't know.
You're like, try a different mode, try a different mechanism, like do like an interpretive dance, which Nick can do, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I'm retired.
He can stand on his hands and his head and twinkle his toes up top.
I sure can. I always tell people it's like their learning style is it's so important like in life. I thought about that was just an arts thing. And then as I met so many different people, I'm like, oh my God, like learning style is not just a physical thing. It's that analogy of like it's the right message, wrong messenger. Like you never listen to your mother, but then some stranger says something and you're like, absolutely, that makes so much sense. And your mom's like,
Yeah.
no,
Just
for
like
sure.
you. Imagine how often that happens in my life, considering my friends are always like, oh, mental health, this, that. And I'll be like, la da 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 da. And they'll be
Yeah,
like, I went to my therapist and she said this. And I'm like, fuck me.
yeah. Oh, I bet.
So yeah, we need to stay in the realm of reality is the name of the game at the end of the day with these thoughts. And that's why I like writing it down, because you see your rationale. But we want to stay away from that what if moment. And it always circles back after. But like, what if this thing happened? You're like, shut the fuck up. Imagine this. Imagine you did that for like everything in your life. Okay. I'm going to let my dog out to pee. And you're like, okay, I'm going to let him out. And you're like, oh, but like, what if there's a skunk? And like, you do that thing and you go out and you like check and you're like, okay, we're good. I know Steven's been sprayed. Otis got sprayed for his first time last week.
We've
Um,
never had a skunk, thank God.
we just had Otis in the face and he went, and then, yeah, Dan dealt with it, not me. Anyway, so imagine you do that. And then the intrusive thought is like, no. But what if there's a dragon that comes over the sky and shoots down fire on my dog and he lights up? Okay. That's how dumb it sounds when you guys go through your entire rationale of making the list of here's the reasons why I would do it. Here's the reasons why I don't. Okay, great. There's my rationale. No what ifs. And then turning around and being like, but a fire breathing dragon, right? We have to let go. You
Mhm.
have to let go at some point, and you need the tools and skills to learn how to let go of that thought process. And that is where meditation is like fucking holy grail. Okay.
Changed my life.
Yeah.
Meditation changed my life.
I love that. I'm so excited to talk about it because we will a little bit.
It changed my life, and I want you can't want it for someone else, but I'm like, me and my husband have a lot of the same mental battles. And I'm like, no, just let me do a guided one for you, something, because I promise it sounds so silly when you've never done it.
I know
But
what we're going to do. I know what we're going to do. It'll be my job, not yours, because you can't be the messenger. Do you think that I can get Dan to do anything?
oh,
No. 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 Okay? It's not my circus, not my monkeys. It's not your circus, not your monkeys either. So we'll get Edmund to do the meditation course that I'm going to tell everyone about after. Okay? He'll just do it.
yeah. Well,
We'll
and
just make him do it.
that's what I literally did for his physical health. I'm like, here's the deal. Too bad. What if we say too bad? Then what?
I made Dan buy Peloton shoes. They're sitting in the basement unopened.
Not the Peloton.
Yeah. So, okay. We already talked about how to navigate them physically, emotionally. We talked about how to navigate them cognitive behaviorally, I think. I think that was a good activity. Nick in the chat right now, they're like, he's the best dance teacher ever. I want to teach you guys dance too. I love teaching dance. I just stopped younger. I mean, before Nick did, because
They don't even know. I'm like, guys, that's how we know each other, by
I
the way.
wanted to be a doctor.
I wanted to be
I
a
had
dancer.
to leave the pointed toes behind.
No, I wanted
Um,
to be a dancer till I learned what financially that means. And I went,
Stop.
oh, no. That's not for
But you
me.
know what? It was really good for our anxiety and depression. And let me tell you, when you're in the hole, you were in the hole.
It was yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we can do another live one day on like dance and mental health and what that brought through.
Oh,
Crack through the surface.
I have
Um so yeah. So you So we talked about how to navigate this in real time. Okay. When the thought comes in, what I want you guys to do with your body. I don't care. Even if you like cluck like a chicken, I don't fucking care what you do. We need to move it out of your body. Okay. So we have the cognitive side of things. We have the in the moment real time stuff. And when it comes to long-term stuff, we're looking at things like mindfulness. We're looking at things like meditation. We're looking at things like breath work, yoga, proper types of exercise. I know you're on a huge exercise kick right now. Protective factors and fun things like hobbies, social connections, learning boundaries. Like we have to do all of the things long term so that not only are we able to navigate the intrusive thoughts when they come in, but then we can also work on doing those bigger systems in the brain, if we regulate the nervous system and we shift and change what's firing and wiring by using all those techniques, what happens over time is the intrusive thoughts start to come in less. Okay. And I think that that's the beautiful thing that people get to experience when I work with them is I don't say, okay, you have a problem with intrusive thoughts. Let's stare at the intrusive thoughts, fix the intrusive thoughts, and now only focus on them so that you get overly obsessed with them. And now you think that your life is still shit because you can't stop thinking about them. I say, okay, let's step back and let's do all this other shit. Let's turn a blind eye to what you think your problem is right now, because your problem actually has a bigger purpose here. And there's things happening inside your brain that you can't even begin to want to think to micromanage and change. This is macro change. So when you say that meditation fixed your life and like at least allowed you to be uncomfortable and comfortable inside your skin at the same time, like, fuck yeah, that's what I want to hear, is that people are leaning into the things that are really challenging and that they are saying, I don't know what this shit does. I don't know what to expect. I don't know why exactly that I'm doing it. But when you look back, you're like, holy shit, the way that I think is so different. The way that I'm engaging in my life is so different. The way that I feel inside my discomfort is so different. How is it possible that sitting and doing nothing could have done that for me? And like, that's the beauty that I want people to see in it, is it's not just sitting and being bored with your eyes closed and being like, and it's not like that.
But that's what it looks like on the outside.
Yeah.
It's so not like I'm at so much more peace mentally because I like focus my thoughts for a short period of time rather than like bounce around to a bunch of different things. I like have a very specific thing I'm meditating on every day.
Your brain training.
Yeah. And then it's like, because I was at a point in my life where I felt like, you have to hit your rock bottom. And I was like, I've arrived. And I was like, no more. And I just dove into it full force. I was like, well, I can't change anything around me. So let me just change how I'm thinking or work on how I'm thinking. And then it changed everything around me. But nothing changed. It's just the way I perceived everything.
Exactly. But your
Like,
perception is all we have. Like I said
yeah.
at the beginning, your negative lens bias, it's how you see the world. You
Oh,
don't
I'm such a well, I was and am still working on being not like a glass half empty person. Like since I was younger, my mom used to tell me all the time, like, I think part of it is her telling me when I was younger, I'm so much like her. And she'd be like, you're just like me. We're so negative. And then the rest of my life, I'm like, I'm so much like my mom. I'm so negative. And I was so negative, but I would always be like, I'm glass half empty. And I've been working on how to like fill my glass differently and like
Yeah.
think about how that works. And literally meditating changed so much. And every time I tell people, they're like, that's silly. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I'm happy and you look real miserable. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I want to like put this into context because you obviously, like, you didn't say, oh, what's the thing that's going to fix me, meditation, and then did it and happen that way. It was like struggle, 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 fail, 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 struggle, fail, fuck my life, blah blah blah. And then you were like, okay, I'm just gonna fucking do this thing, like I don't even care, I don't know. And suddenly you start doing it, and by accident, by proxy, things change. And this is like a lot of the bad advice that I hear and see online will be like, guys, you just have to like know that you're not your thoughts. And like the only thing that I can think of is, how do you learn that if you're not sitting with your thoughts and meditating? How can you actually conceptualize you are not your thoughts? We're not like autopilot robots going around being like, you are not your thoughts, you are not your thoughts. It's like, yeah, you are your fucking thoughts until you recognize that you're not your thoughts. You can't tell someone, like, let's use a dance reference. Okay. Let's do like a lay terms dance reference. Does everyone know what like a jeté is? Like a jump in the air? What about like going on point? Do we all know what going on point is on your toes? I'm trying to think of like every person who's like, I don't dance.
Yeah.
Let's do point. It's a good one. You can't say to someone, you are a point dancer, put on their shoes and go on point. Like if you did that, they'd fucking break their fucking ankles, right? Like I want to like get up and like do it. What I see in my head, like a dad doing a point dance, like you have to say, okay, we're going to do dance classes and then we're going to do ballet and then we're going to talk about pointing our fucking ankle first. And then we're going to talk about plie. right? Like we can't just jump ahead and be like, oh, you are a point dancer. The same way that you can't say to someone, you're not your thoughts. This is why I hate when people are like, I'm working on my mental health because I'm like reading and I'm listening to podcasts and I'm like, what are you doing though? And they'll be like, I'm listening and I'm learning. I'm like, what are you doing? Right? Like you can regurgitate anything that someone says, but your cells have to believe it for you to actually feel different, right?
All work, and I feel like that's not what, especially in the wake of like a million mental health podcasts, which is a great thing.
Mhm.
But like, I think there's a lot of like, oh, if I just listen to it, I'm going to be a better person or be in a better mood. And it's like, maybe you should take some notes. And there's so
Yeah.
much that you can actually pull,
This
but
is
it's
why I'm
all
such a
work.
savage.
It's all work.
I always say to people, I'm like, you can listen to me all you want, but your mental health isn't going to get better until you do something. Like when I work with my patients, I'm like, but you know that you're doing this yourself. Like I'm not grabbing you by shackles and dragging you. Like this isn't like a learning thing. Like I'm going to teach you, but you have to do it. And then when you do it, the things will change. If you don't do it, I can't help at all. I'm
Physio,
actually
your brain, literally physio, but your brain. Like
totally.
they give you an exercise, you don't do it, you're still injured.
Yeah. So like you are not your thoughts. That's an irritating piece of advice that I hear a lot. Also, don't pay attention to the voice. It's like, how can you not pay attention to the voice without learning how to not pay attention to the voice? You can't say to someone, oh my God, guys, when someone says to you, if you're like, I have depression, they're like, don't be sad. And you're like, thanks, Sherlock. Like, what the
You
fuck
know,
are you like? What are you even saying? Like,
don't worry about that. Oh, bet. Ah, thank God. I never thought of that. You're
yeah.
so right.
That meme with the person in the canoe being like, when my boyfriend tells me not to worry about something and when I have anxiety, it's like, da-na-na.
Yeah.
I love it. So there's that. And then there's also like, um, I mean, I don't, this one's muddy. I don't want to say it too muddy. Okay. Okay. Don't judge yourself.
Oh,
It's like,
sick.
how not to if you don't learn how not to. And that's why I always say to people, like, first, meditation is such an unbelievable tool because it takes these very simple questions and it allows you to start downloading how like the silly words that you've heard your whole life are so right and they make so much sense, but they couldn't have made sense until the exact moment that you learned it while you were sitting there doing nothing. And it's because you have to grapple with the concept. Your body has to have the realization. It's not just about reading, it's about being. It's like the difference between being a human doing and a human being. And that is like, just to hear you say meditation changed your life, like even I hear it and I'm like, that's yes, yes. But other people, it would be like, that's so cheesy. Like, guys, when I tell you what meditation has done for my brain, like it's everything that I am. It's every thought process that I have is I've already been there and I've already navigated it and tackled it because it's already happened everywhere.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean I'm perfect and it doesn't mean that I'm not going to have emotional reactions or that I'm not going to have past traumas act up or that I'm not going to have a human experience, but it means that the thoughts genuinely don't take over because I know with permanence that the thought is just a thought. I can't share with you an experience, right? Like if me and Nick tried to explain it to you what it felt like, the last time you were on stage dancing, there are no amount of words
Yeah.
that we could say to give you that experience. So like there is no point in us even telling you and teaching you about meditation. The only thing is do it. And like that's why I did like a mini course and I'm going to tell everyone about it if you guys want to do it. But I built it so that it's like, here's your learning lessons, but get to fucking work. Like, we're not here to talk about this. We're here to do it. And you're here to rise to the occasion and buff up against your resistance and do the things so that you can learn the lessons so that you're not relying on like external knowledge. Like, you can't do anything with it. It's like knowing a recipe and being like, you've memorized your recipe for your live stream, but you've never fucking cooked it. So you're like, oh, I don't know how it's gonna go.
Yeah.
Like you gotta know. You don't know what the cake's gonna be like till you bake it.
Oh, that was a good one.
You just like food. Shut up.
I do. I No, Siri, shut up. Fuck off. Siri's my intrusive thought. Shut the
Yo,
fuck. I
my,
don't know what we said that made Siri. She's still talking. She's listening.
Here's what I found.
Shut up. I hate her.
mine does this all the time. I'll let her play out. Tell me when it's off.
She's good. She just passed away.
R.I.P.
That's like
So yeah.
my she like it doesn't matter what I say, she'll be like, sorry, I didn't get that. And I'm
Oh
like,
my
oh my,
God.
we
Yeah,
beef.
mine's I was just talking about this the other day, like technology. You when you don't want it to activate and you're like half whispering, it's like, pardon, what did you say? And if you're yelling at it, being like, answer it, like to your AirPods, it's like, what? So bad technology, but it's so good.
Mhm.
So yeah, meditation obviously like teaches you non-judgment, right? Guys, if you've ever heard someone say don't judge yourself and it's like, how?
Yeah.
Practice mindfulness and meditation. You'll actually see what it's like to neutrally look at yourself and be like, huh, there actually isn't a story required. There is no spiraling required. I can just observe this and do nothing. But you can't imagine what observing with doing nothing is, like what I taught you to do with your intrusive thoughts, without practicing the skill.
Mhm.
Like you can't do like what's another skill like what's something that you've worked really hard for? I'm like learning how to play golf, which is really hard, but what's something that you're doing right now that you would say requires a lot of heavy lifting on your end for work?
I would say I'm trying to get, I mean, this is like not creative, but it's the first thing that's not creative that I'm trying to figure out in my life is like how to like my husband bought me Final Cut Pro, which is like an editing thing because I've always been using like iMovie, but I'm trying to like really grasp and discipline myself to get to know and learn something like that. And I have a lot of trouble doing that. And I
Because you
actually
don't like learning new things.
because I just want it to be done. Like
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
like
like
I've
that.
already used this other tool for over a decade and it worked perfectly. I know that this one will allow me to do more. It will open up so many more doors and do so many more positive things and change my content and all these things. But like learning it is a lot for my brain because I have to have so much more patience. So I'm practicing patience like it wasn't instilled in me, but I'm really working towards that. And I would say like because physical things are like easy to
Yeah.
like tackle.
Most things are easy for you. That's
No,
why no, that's why you're a high achieving perfectionist. Because most things come easy to you. And in the past, if the easy things weren't, if it wasn't easy, you're like, I don't even like that. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
well, yeah, my mom used to tell us if you're not going to be the best at it, don't even start it.
Yeah, Mom. No.
Perfectionist because she came from nothing, like
Oh,
nothing.
yeah.
And so like her, it's the whole they put it onto you thing. But so then my whole life I was like, well, I just have to be the best. And if I know I'm not going to be, which is a thought, I don't, how do I know? I've never started it. If
Mhm.
I don't know I'm going to be the best at it, don't even start it. So I'm like trying to force myself now to like do things that I don't know and like discipline myself because that's where my struggle is and not tackling it and
Yeah.
talking myself down from it.
Yeah. But you're putting in the work
Yeah.
without knowing what the result is going to be. And like, I'm already seeing someone come in the chat being like, I don't know how to relax enough for meditation to work. That's the point, Tammy. You're supposed to be I was going to say walking shit show, but that's not punny enough. You're supposed to be a sitting shit show. Like you're supposed to be sitting in your shit and feeling so uncomfortable and navigating the depths of your brain and your mind so that you become de-intensified to your own self. And I think that you can work this up a lot in your mind of what it's like to sit there and how you can't do it, but no one can do it. No
Mhm.
one certainly can do it when they first start. And you might have a day where it's like, that was a sick meditation. I won that. And then it's like, wrong again. And then you sit down the next time and you're all over the fucking place. And there's a method to the madness. And I always tell people you just have to stay the course.
Mhm.
So and I'm very, very big on not guided meditation. So tell Edmund that that's what he's getting into.
Mhm.
Is it's going to I'll teach him a few styles, and that's what we do at the beginning, of some guiding of in and out, but all silent. Everything that you are practicing, guys, it has to be silent. And it's one of the things that I'm so strict on because that is the only way you can meet yourself.
Mhm.
It is the only way that you can be intimately with your thoughts and with your struggles and with your suffering, because without it, someone's either tickling your back or they're telling you where they want you to go. And I need this to be about where you're going. And you are the only one in there navigating with yourself. So you have to be willing to suffer through it and rise to the occasion. So that's why when I built the mini course, it's silent. And I am pushing people to go past their comfort level. That's the point. The
Mhm.
point is to make you uncomfortable. And I did it for a reason.
It's hard.
Everything is selectively chosen.
It's so
So
hard to be
it's
that quiet. Like it's really hard. Like the very first time I remember the very first time I laid down and I was like, what do I do here? Like, even though you have the tools and things, but like you almost like are talking to yourself about how like, well, this is not this and this is not like you want to already just be good at it. Like a big thing, it's not silent but sound baths. Like that fucked me up. I was so uncomfortable, but in the best way. I was so uncomfortable, but it like that the like circular noise
that
in
all,
my head like
that also
pushed
has to do with your ADHD.
yeah, it like pushed all of these thoughts out and only left me with one. And I was like, and I did that out of body thing where I like stared at myself and I was like, who is this person?
Your face.
No, I like was like, who was that? Oh, it
Oh,
was
I love experiences like that. That it's just it takes your reality and it shatters it a bit. And it's like,
yes,
are you sure you thought that? Because we're
yes,
about to show you something different. And that's why I love psychedelics. That is a conversation for a very different day. But it takes your reality and it goes poof. And then you're like, wait, what? Like, are you sure or are you sure? And then you're like, who's what? I don't know anymore. And who am I? And I love that. So meditation is like the entryway into having these conversations with yourself, and they are so fucking necessary. Like I do not work with patients if they're not practicing this in my program. Like
mhm,
I do not see patients and work on their mental health if they are not in peace of mind method, because I can guarantee that people are going to shift if they do the things. How can I guarantee that a patient on the other side of working with me is actually going to do what I'm telling them if they're not committed to doing the things, right?
yeah,
Like once a month therapy is like, you're just coming to shoot the shit. I want to know that you've done work on yourself every single day until you get back to me and go, these are all the changes that have happened. So that's why I work in this setting. So if you are someone who wants to learn meditation, if you are someone who thinks that you've meditated before, but now you're not really sure if you've ever meditated a day in your life, this might be for you. I'm going to leave the little mini, it's called the Accelerated Meditation Mini Course. I'm going to leave it in the chat. We're going to challenge Nick to do it. And we're also going to challenge his husband to do it too. Okay. We are starting on May the 22nd. So you have some time to gear yourself up. It's just going to be 5 days in a row. So from Monday to Friday, you and Edmund don't have to do it together. You
mhm,
can do it at separate times, but you're going to tell him that he's locked in and there's no choice. And it's too bad, so sad, because I want him to experience this with a different outset and a different mindset than Nick wants me to meditate. Like, I don't like, you can't get a partner to do that. They have to be willing to step into it themselves. And for those of you that have intrusive thoughts and you've never even considered this as an option, take your brain to the gym.
mhm.
Take your brain to the fucking gym. You cannot expect it to be different or for your life to be different or your thoughts to be different or your nervous system to be different if you're not willing to do the first step. Like that is the first of many, but we have to
That
start
easy?
somewhere.
Oh my God. I always say like if it was that easy, do you know how happy and fit and gorgeous and all these things we would all be?
He
Like
says being fit and gorgeous.
no, 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 no. Bitch, I work so fucking hard. I am tired.
Fit, gorgeous, and mentally unstable.
You know, you can't have all three
No.
sometimes. Like it has to go, you know, it's not a thing. So I am gonna pee, so like I just have to run to the bathroom very quickly.
Well, it's a good thing that you're a dude. Get it done quick.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I have one of my patients being like, Jenna, what's the giveaway? I said I was going to do a giveaway. So I'm going to tell everyone what the giveaway is going to be. I'll wait till you can go pee and then
Okay,
come back.
Kirby.
Do we have any questions? Does anyone have stuff to ask me about intrusive thoughts while we're still on the topic of this? Can I tell you about the next live that I have coming up so that you can sign up and grab your spot now? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Lots of links coming in today. This link that I'm just posting now that says live training, that is for my masterclass that's happening next Monday, May 15th at 8 p.m. EST. Okay. That is going to be super educational, all about the nervous system, all about mindsets that we have that are holding us back for people that have anxiety and depression. Okay. I hope that if you aren't a part of my community and you're listening right now, you're like, holy shit, this woman is inside my head. She knows what's happening inside there. And we're going to navigate it together. Okay. But I'm going to tell you how I went from being a super loose cannon with my mental health and my anxiety and depression, and how I busted through that by changing a lot of my mindsets and by reworking the way that I was tackling my nervous system, because I wasn't utilizing a lot of the things I talked about today in the proper way. So I'm going to be going through all of that. If you want to grab your spot, go do that now because spots are limited. And I am going to wait for Nick to come back so I can tell you about the giveaway that I'm doing. Oh, and in the meantime, drop your questions. If you have any questions, I can open up the Q&A box. Do you want to put it in Q&A? I had someone from earlier saying, what if the thoughts don't fall under either category? I would love to hear more. I know it's from someone anonymous, but by all means, shoot me a message on Instagram and let's talk about it, because I'm all about being curious and learning more about how people are perceiving the experiences that they're having, because that is the main and most important thing at the end of the day. We can talk about clinical stuff till kingdom come. I can tell you about all the science. I can tell you about all the umbrella categories. I can tell you about DSM-5. We can shoot the shit about it all day long. But if your experience feels different than what you are reading on paper and hearing about and being told that it is, then your opinion matters more. Justin saying, I feel mine are more ruminating thoughts. Ruminating thoughts are not the same as intrusive thoughts, but intrusive thoughts can turn into ruminating thoughts if you're not able to let go. Justin is one of my patients in Peace of Mind methods. So I'm obviously going to hound him about his meditation practice this week. Ileana says, I have no questions. My therapist always asks if I have questions, and my brain just goes, I refuse. Honestly, I know that subtype. My best friend's like that. She'll be like, nope, nope, I'm not allowed. And that actually comes from a core belief that I don't even want to, I don't want to out you online. But Ileana, if you want to send me a side message, let's shoot the shit about that, because I love that. I like dissecting people with my scalpel and being like, and core belief, cognitive distortion, present, let's work on it.
I think that's why therapy is so scary, like, and why I've been the person who doesn't go to an actual person. Like I meditate, but then I also do like energy healing and sound baths, Reiki healing, because I'm afraid for someone to tell me about me. You know what I mean? Having that personality of someone being like, well, this is this. And I'm like,
I think we could have fun together.
I know I need that level, and I've been fighting it, and everyone's always like, it's time, you've done so much work, now just do this part.
I think in the right environment, it's actually really fun. And that's what it has to, there has to be a playful back and forth instead of it being like a scary incision. It needs to be like a slice open going, what the fuck's in here? And when you do that, it gives you there's safety. Right now, it just doesn't feel safe. And it probably doesn't feel safe because you're like, you don't belong in here. But when you realize that that veil is a lot more sheer than anyone would ever like to admit, it becomes more comforting. But that is a process, and it has to be with the right person. Someone's asking me, how do you shift or stop the what if thoughts? I do thought stopping and thought replacing. So I will, like I said, cut it at the knees. That is a what if is an automatic nope after you've done the rationale. And you can do thought stopping and thought replacing. That's a technique where we, like what Nick said, you say no, but then you replace it with another thought. So like, let's say every time when you said you were looking at the 444, you'd think something negative, you would say no to that. And then you'd say, I'm going to do this instead. And there would be a positive connotation being associated with the thing that once was negative. That is retraining the brain to do what fires together, wires together. But we are, again, like I said, breaking apart the mold and then reforming it so that it's working for us instead of against us.
I've always thought that going like after, like you said, the like positive negative thing, like that is, such a list person. So like I've always thought, why would I go back? That's like going back to an ex. And it's like, that's dumb. So like, why would I go back and rethink this negative thought through, even though I already did the work and I'm not happy here. So like, let me think about the positives and negatives. Oh, why, if I've talked myself off the ledge, why would I go back and re-go through all of those things, already having experienced that. I've already done the work. And if I
Because
think
you're
I think
logical.
again, I already did the work. Like,
Yeah. So that actually is not something that I'm naturally inclined to do. I'll go back and be like, but like, what if I forgot something? Or what if I didn't take this into consideration? Or what if I'm wrong? Like, that's where my brain naturally goes to. So I had to practice to become that. And there are times where it will get the better of me. So I understand everyone's like, but what if? Like, I get it, but you have to look at yourself being shut up. Like,
yeah.
we already know what the outcome of this is, and the interim is just suffering. So if you already know the answer, you have to cut it at the knees, especially guys, when it's not high stakes. These aren't high stakes conversations. You're not deciding on your life track. You're not deciding on your life partners. You're not making life or death decisions between people. Like, these are low stakes things, and you have to know when to like fight it and when to bite it. Okay. For yourself, for your mental health. Okay. So here is the giveaway that I am doing, because Stacy's going to smack me across the face at our next Peace of Mind Method call virtually. Everyone who joins the meditation course that I am going to be running from May 22nd to May 26th gets to be entered in a giveaway to win a Peace of Mind Method Nervous System Edition program. So that is a program that I run. There are 7 modules. You get one-to-one access to calls with me in a group setting. You will get access to the full deal. The program itself is 700 in Canadian. So I think that it would be a fun little raffle for you to join in if you win, because then you get access to working with me in perpetuity as long as I stay alive, and you get access to my whole program and starting to work on the nervous system stuff. Okay. So again, if you join and sign up for my meditation accelerated mini course that I've posted in the chat, I will do it again. If you sign up, yes, spots are limited. So please, by all means, go get your spots. You will get entered for a giveaway to work in Peace of Mind Method with me. Yay. Okay. That's exciting. Everyone that's in my program is like, Jana, why not us? Guys, I'll give you some special stuff too on the side. You always know that I'm rooting for my patients. So that is my spiel for the day. If you're listening to the live replay after this, Rhiannon, I'm laughing. Rhiannon did my meditation course. She's like, damn, should have waited till this one. If you're listening to the live replay, then shoot me a message and ask for the links. I will give you the link to sign up for the meditation course that's coming up at the end of May. I will give you the link for the masterclass that's happening next Monday. And you will also be able to witness me forcing Nick and his husband to meditate for an entire week if you join, because I will make them give us updates the whole way through. All right.
I love a meditation.
You're happy. Edmund's not.
I am. And I'll be happy that I'm going to make him do it.
Don't tell him. We'll just like tell him like 2 days before, actually like the day before, and just be like, today's the day you meditate. I've already signed you up for a program and people on social media are watching you. So
So good luck.
it's happening. And also like, it's 5 days, you know, anyone can do 5 days. Edmund's here going, been here the whole time.
Oh,
babe.
stop. There he is.
Shit. We've been
Well,
caught.
young man, get to work.
No. Okay. Well, yeah. You got 2 weeks lead time to figure shit out. You are so welcome, everyone, for hosting. I'm just seeing some thank yous coming in. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out after if you don't feel comfortable asking while we are being recorded, obviously. And I will leave again my Instagram here so that you can shoot me that message. You guys should all go follow Nick because he's ha ha ha. And have fun. Someone's asking how much is it in US? The meditation course is probably like $70 in US. So that's a nice fun conversion rate for you being in the US and not Canadian. Yeehaw. But yeah, the program will be something that you get sent into the giveaway for free. If you win, then you win. There's no cost. Okay. Nick, one of my patients wants your Instagram, please.
Me blind trying to find the chat button. There it is. Why did I pick such a long handle?
I have always wondered that.
Because
Like I said.
it's like brand awareness. So like whenever a brand like thinks you, it's like Nicholas James MSI. It's like the whole thing, and it's like it can't be Nicholas James because there's
That's
so many.
too common.
I have to be Googleable, you know.
Yeah,
It's a stupid thing to think about, but you have to be the first thing to show up
get
on
it.
Google.
I mean,
And
there's only one Dr. Jenna T, so
So like, see, and I couldn't be like his real last name. My husband's is Hogan. I can't be Nick Hogan. There's already one of those.
Yeah. Do you want to know what mine would have been?
What?
Dr. Wiener.
Tabachnik's great.
I know. My last name's like a handful, so we just went with Dr. J.
Mhm.
Okay. We ready to park it there? We feeling good? We have our questions answered? Do we understand intrusive thoughts a little bit better and how to tackle them? I hope to hear from you guys. Like, I hope that you are going to send me a message being like, yeah, I'm actually ready to tackle it this time. Or, oh, I'm actually thinking about it differently now. And I've seen the intensity change. I like hearing from everyone. I like to keep my community connected. And I will always answer because I love chatting to my peoples. All right. So let's park it there, put it on the shelf for next time. Maybe we can have a fun chat about something dark and twisty next time.
Mhm.
All right. All right,
Yeah.
folks. Ciao for now. Farewell. Nick, it was lovely seeing you and your beautiful hair.
So, thank you for, trying to
Namaste.
giving me these tools because my brain is always all over the place.
All right. Now we get to business.
Hmm.
We start with meditation and then we get to business. All right,
Hmm.
folks. Ciao for now. Peace out. It was lovely to meet all of you, and we will speak soon. Bye.
Steve.
Bye, Stephen.